the idea of a democratic and free society. It is an idea for which I hope to live for and to see realized. But my Lord, if it needs be, it is an idea for which I am prepared to die.
Well, the Nelson Mandela Lecture has become one of the most anticipated in South Africa's calendar. A former American President, Barack Obama, will be delivering this year's Nelson Mandela Lecture on the 17th of July. The SABC will be bringing you that event live. Let's reflect now on some of the past lectures.
The inaugural lecture took place at the Nelson Mandela Theatre in Braamfontein, Johannesburg. It was on July 19, 2003, when the 42nd former president of the USA, Bill Clinton, delivered the Nelson Mandela Lecture. The best birthday present for Nelson Mandela would be for the world to do more for Africa, former President Bill Clinton said. Clinton and his wife Hillary joined the audience as they sang happy birthday to the former South African president, who turned 85 on that Friday. The Nelson Mandela Theatre again hosted the second Nelson Mandela Lecture, the guest speaker being Archbishop Desmond Tutu.
Archbishop Tutu touched on a number of things that the country has accomplished since the demise of apartheid and came up with suggestions on how future challenges can be faced. He questioned the worth of black economic empowerment, saying South Africa has discarded its caring and compassionate nature.
We cannot glibly, on full stomach, speak about handouts to those who often go to bed hungry. It is cynical in the extreme to speak about handouts when people can become rich, very rich, at the stroke of a pen.
He stressed that the country must work hard to eradicate poverty, which poses the most immediate threat to our safety and security. Tutu said, open debate on contentious issues must be encouraged. He cited, among others, issues such as proposed basic income grant to fight poverty and South Africa's policy on Zimbabwe.
We need to find ways in which to engage the hoi polloi, the so-called masses, the people, in public discourse through Indaba's town hall forums, so that no one feels marginalized and that their point of view matters, it counts.
Kenyan Nobel laureate Professor Wangari Maathai delivered the third Nelson Mandela Lecture. Addressing a panel that included Nelson Mandela, Bill Clinton and Archbishop Desmond Tutu, amongst others, Maathai painted a solution to Africa's problems that was almost elegant in its simplicity.
Equitable distribution of resources cannot be effected unless there is democratic space, which respects the rule of law and human rights. Such democratic space gives citizens an enabling environment to be creative and productive. What is clear is that there is a close linkage between sustainable management of resources and equitable distribution of the same, on one hand, and good governance and peace on the other. These are the pillars of any stable and secure state.
During his presidency, South Africa's Thabo Mbeki delivered the 2006 lecture.
I believe I know this as a matter of fact, that the great masses of our country every day pray that the new South Africa that is being born will be a good, a moral, a humane, and a caring South Africa, which as it matures, will progressively guarantee the happiness of all its citizens.
Another Nobel laureate, Kofi Annan, delivered the Nelson Mandela Lecture. The former United Nations Secretary General focused on Africa's progress, saying much still needed to be done in areas of security, development, and human rights.
Stability in Africa may be spreading, but a continent at peace, which after all is what we all seek, remains a distant goal. Most Africans have come to recognize the high cost of persistent conflict, the years of squandered development, the displacement of people, the enormous loss of life. And most realize that they need to work together to pacify this continent.
Liberia's President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf presented the 6th Nelson Mandela Lecture in Soweto. She stressed the importance of transparent, accountable government and the need to fight corruption in Africa.
Our government has taken strong action to combat the scourge of corruption. It is our fervent belief that anyone who uses state power to steer public resources to his or her personal benefit must be held accountable.
To the delight of the crowd, Johnson Sirleaf asked that she be remembered as someone who wished for a better Africa.
If someday I am remembered as one of the many dreamers who came in your wake, who, unable to fill your shoes, walked in your shadow, to build a new Africa that I can think of no other place to be in history.
The 2009 lecture was organized under the theme Eradicating Poverty by Investment in the Marginalized and as a way of creating wealth and combating poverty. Bangladeshi social entrepreneur Professor Muhammad Yunus delivered the 7th Nelson Mandela Lecture in Johannesburg. Ariel Dorfman presented the 2010 Nelson Mandela Lecture. The author and human rights activist spoke at length on ideals that Madiba valued, particularly reconciliation.
There is no guarantee that we will ever reach the deep reconciliation we need as a species. Indeed, I tend to think, it may be the transgressive writer in me, that some damage done is irreparable. I notice that when justice comes infrequently, the most long-lasting memories are in danger of fading. But when despair visits me, I hold on to the image of the garden, a garden that grows like memories should. A garden that grows as justice should. A garden that grows like true reconciliation should.
The 9th annual Nelson Mandela Lecture in 2011 was delivered by Dr. Ishmael Sirageldin.
If modern democratic states are based on a social contract that unites the human family within its borders in a framework of citizenship, then the felt presence of a modicum of social justice is the necessary glue that will hold that society together.
Mary Robinson delivered the 10th Nelson Mandela Lecture on the 5th of August 2012. The former Irish president and renowned human rights activist spoke about South Africa.
We cannot deny that South Africa faces serious problems. I read about them in the newspapers. I hear about them from my South African friends, and I see evidence of them with my own eyes. The scourge of poverty, with which, as that National Plan of Action stated, democracy is irreconcilable, has been a central theme of my human rights work. So undermining is poverty of human rights. Where you witness extremes of wealth side by side with dire poverty within the same country, it is more divisive than an overall condition of poverty.
The venue for the 11th Nelson Mandela Lecture was the University of South Africa. UNISA bears significance in that Mandela studying law with the university. The guest speaker for the 2013 lecture was academic and global philanthropist, Dr. Mo Ibrahim. The City Hall in Cape Town is the venue where Nelson Mandela made his first public appearance upon his release from prison in 1990. This venue was also host to the 12th annual Nelson Mandela Lecture, which was presented by Chilean President Michel Bachelet. Bachelet spoke under the theme Building Cohesion Through Active Citizenship. Professor of Economics at the Paris School of Economics, Thomas Piketty, presented the 13th Nelson Mandela Annual Lecture at the University of Johannesburg's Soweto campus on October the 3rd in 2015. On the eve of Mandela Day in 2016, technologist, businessman and philanthropist Bill Gates addressed the Nelson Mandela Lecture under the theme Living Together. The Microsoft founder spoke of how there is absolutely no doubt that in areas of health, education and quality of government, South Africa has opportunities to do better.
If there's one thing I'm sure of, it's this: Africa can achieve the future it aspires to. That future depends on the people of Africa working together across economic and social strata and across national borders to lay a foundation so that Africa's young people have the opportunities they deserve.
Gender inequality was a major theme of the 15th annual Nelson Mandela Lecture delivered by the United Nations Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed in Cape Town. The theme of the lecture was Centering Gender, Reducing Inequality Through Inclusion. Several high-profile South Africans attended the event at the Cape Town International Convention Centre, including Madiba's widow, Graça Michel, the Cape Town Mayor, Patricia de Lille. In this lecture, Mohammed reflected on the relationships between South Africa and her native Nigeria.
As a young girl growing up in Nigeria, I was proud of our country's contributions to the liberation struggle in South Africa. For the first time, paying taxes had a profound meaning for many of us. History has since moved on, but we should never forget this solidarity, to reach across borders, to transcend differences, protect our core values, and combat all that threatens our humanity.